Christian Servants Day is my favorite day of the year here at East Hill. We just started a new year, and really 2 months are already gone, aren't they? And now we have a great time to hear some lessons out of God's Word, and as was mentioned in the prayer just now, a way for us to be strengthened inside of God's Word for us to go out and serve. And I hope we can do that today. I know the lessons will certainly encourage us to do so. And Brother Keith Mosher, during this hour, will be presenting a lesson entitled The Reason to Serve. Brother Mosher is no stranger to the East Hill congregation, and we certainly love him and admire him. I certainly appreciate him as being a student of his. I was told I was a former student today, but that's okay. But I appreciate everything he does at the school, and I appreciate every time he is here for Christian Servants Day and Truth and Love and for other reasons. And I'm excited to have him here this morning to speak to us on the topic, the reason to serve. Brother Mosher.
I don't know if I can express how grateful I am just to be standing in a pulpit. This past year, although I've had hundreds of hours in classes and classes at Forest Hill, I've been in the pulpit exactly 5 times. And so this is a privilege for me to be here with you again and to see such a good number on Saturday morning, because we're restarting, aren't we? We're starting over, trying to do it again. And we're grateful that there are still those who love the Lord. I'm grateful to see Brother and Sister Burns, and I'm so glad that Jonathan was able to get over his bout with the virus and to be back and doing so well. It's good to see Caleb, and every time I see Caleb, I'm reminded of his grandparents. I went to school at the Memphis School preaching with his grandfather, Rod Rutherford, and Rod was a year ahead of me in school and 20 days younger than I am on the calendar. So every time he sees me, Caleb, he calls me the old man. But we're so grateful to see you. I'm always glad to see Glenn. I don't see you very often, except on lectureships, I guess. But and you don't change. You get younger. Yeah, not better looking, but just younger. It's always good to be with him. We've been on many lectureships together, and he's been on ours and so on. We're glad to be with you, really are. I think it would help you this morning to look at John 14:15 as we start, because what I'm about to say really comes down to this verse. It really can be concluded here. If you love me, the King James has, you will keep, if you love me, keep my commandments. When you read that in the English, it sounds very much like a command, and in a sense it is. But the original language reads something like this: if you love me, you will keep my commandments, which gives me the sense that if I love him, what I do necessarily and just obviously follows. It's built into loving Christ to be his servant. And so today when we talk about reasons to serve, it really boils down to whether or not I love the Lord. Oftentimes, when I was doing local work, I would preach a sermon called Falling in Love with Jesus. I think I preached it about 3 times by request. But we need to do that. We need to fall in love with our Savior. When I serve in the Lord's church, when we serve the Lord, I believe there can be no greater joy. I think that's the time when we're the happiest. It's the time when we learn that people from all walks of life can come together and exhausted from their day jobs often, and can come together and still work for the Lord. It's a marvelous time. It's a great joy. Something has come home to me, having done missionary work, especially in European countries and especially in Russia, that people in the United States have a more difficult thing about community than they do in other nations. In our country, we're taught individualism, a kind of raise yourself up by your own bootstraps. In these communities, which are mostly socialistic and some were at one time communistic, they were taught to serve the community, to subject themselves and submit themselves to the community. And so the community became the larger good. And when we talk to them about serving the local church, they don't have a big step to make mentally or spiritually to go there. I remember teaching in Mosher, Russia on one occasion, and I was teaching the adult class, and I noticed and looked around, and I said, "Where are your children?" There were no children coming to services. I said, "Where are your children?" Well, afterwards, Tatiana Nestorkin told me that in her country, the government told them how to do it with their children, so they didn't tell their children what to do. I said, that's going to change now. And so we started having Sunday school in Mosher, Russia. What I'm getting to is, it's hard for us as Americans to realize that the effort to submit ourselves to community is what Christ is asking us to do, to subject ourselves to the group, to improve the church, to work out from ourselves. That's why he said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself. That's very difficult. He was sitting on the mountain that day, and the first thing out of his mouth to his disciples was, "Blessed are the pure in spirit." And so he was telling us the most important thing when I want to be a servant is to empty Keith. If there's too much Keith, there's not enough Jesus. And this is difficult for us because of the way we're reared. Well, let me talk for a few minutes then about some reasons, and you could make up your own probably, but all of these boil down to John 14:15. First of all, when we serve, we grow in our relationship to Christ. I have learned from the pandemic something very important about how much I miss when I can't go to the assembly, when I can't be around my brothers and sisters, when it's the case that I go all week and I never see half of them or any of them, and there's no encouragement and no strength drawn. Well, when we serve together, we can encourage one another, draw strength from one another. And boy, did we miss that during the time we were shut out from even going to the building. But when we start serving, when we start going to work for the Lord, when we don't just sit in the pew, then we start growing in our relationship with the Master himself. He said the love of Christ was to bear one another's burdens. Well, if I'm carrying your burden, you're carrying mine. We're growing together in Christ. Our relationship is getting greater and greater. We're also seeing something else. Look at Romans 1:16. It's a marvelous thing to see the gospel work, to watch lives change, to see people fed and clothed and helped. You do know that when we put the sign up out here, the Church of Christ meets here, we become responsible for all of the hungry, thirsty, naked, and in prison and sick folks in the neighborhood. And so when we start doing this together, we're actually growing. I often ask my students something at the Memphis School of Preaching. I said, "Are you growing?" "Oh, yes, sir." I said, "But most of the time you're just studying for tests." But even that, without the proper motivation of studying to grow, they're growing because that's what the Word does. And when I put it to work, when I see it work, I'm encouraged. There's no greater feeling than to know that I helped someone find the gospel. That makes me excited. I get joy out of that, and I understand I'm growing too. I'm sort of watering my spirit by serving together. And I'm just loving people is what I'm doing. Brother Colley's going to talk about that in a minute, so I'm going to leave it alone. But loving people is what it's all about anyway. I have a wife who is the number one wife, period, to me. She's a servant. She has taught me how to love people. The reason she's not with me today is she's getting her second vaccination this morning. And so she should be protected as I am. Brother Jonathan didn't tell you, but I've had both vaccination shots. And now Jonathan suggested my students should get one to be vaccinated from me, but I didn't listen to him. But think about it. Can I just sit in the pew and really get that kind of encouragement? I don't know how you'd do that. And to be part of what you're doing this morning, for instance, so encouraging. Sometimes I just don't want to go somewhere. Do you ever get feelings? But after I get there, I'm all right. Everything's fine. I begin to be encouraged. A second thing happens, or there's a second reason, I think. I start finding out what my real purpose as a Christian is. Listen to me carefully, and I'll try to explain what I'm about to say. Brothers and sisters, there's a chasm between being a church member and a New Testament Christian. There's a huge gap between those two things. Yeah. A New Testament Christian has a purpose. Let me try to illustrate what I'm saying. I was standing next to a man in a congregation up north, and he said to me, well, after all, the only reason I'm in this, he meant being a Christian, was to go to heaven. If I think like that, I've missed the whole purpose. Going to heaven is what happens after we fulfill our purpose, and our purpose is to be a servant. Our purpose is to be fulfilled in that sentence. We get spiritually recharged when we serve. Look at 2 Corinthians 7:13. There's a statement there Paul makes about Titus that's really interesting. There were a lot of problems in Corinth, and Paul sent Titus there to get a report. And after he got the report, he said, I feel refreshed, Paul did. He was encouraged because they were all starting to do what was right, hopefully. And when Titus gave Paul that report, Paul said, I feel refreshed. Why? Because the brethren were working together. They were starting to do it right. They were fulfilling their purpose. When I read James 1:1, I get amazed. This is the half-brother of Jesus who, according to John, did not believe in his brother before his brother died on that cross that day. Neither did any of Jesus' brothers, half-brothers. They didn't think he was the Messiah. It'd be awfully hard to think if your brother said to you, I'm God, to believe that, would it not? Well, they had a problem when they saw him resurrected, then they believed. And so James says, Yaakov says, I'm a doulos. I'm a bondslave to my brother. Wow. He knew his purpose. I have a master. My own half-brother is my master. Wow. I find meaning and purpose in being a true New Testament Christian. A true New Testament Christian is a servant. Mark 9:35, folks. The first shall be last, and the last first. Have you ever felt or heard, and I know that's the wrong statement, have you ever heard someone say to you, I don't get anything out of church? I wonder why they say that. Because they go to get, not to give. They go to be served, not to serve. They want, they don't give. Serving is obeying the Lord. That's exactly what it is. Anything else is less than that. And seeing the multitudes. Jesus went up into a mountain apart. And then the Holy Spirit says, and when he was set. Did you ever wonder why the Holy Spirit told us that? Why did we have to know he was sitting down? It's there, and therefore it's necessary for us to understand why it's there. Well, sitting down was the position a rabbi took when he wanted to speak from authority. He spoke from the chair. He spoke ex cathedra. If you've ever heard of a cathedral, and you know that the Roman Catholics have buildings they call cathedrals, what that means is that somebody there is either a bishop or an archbishop in residence who is in authority from the seat. Well, Jesus sat down to let his disciples know, I'm about to speak with heaven's authority. And he opened his mouth. Now, why did the Holy Spirit tell us that? Don't you have to open your mouth to teach? Yes, but this is a Hebrew expression. That indicates to us that he was about to speak like a prophet, the way Peter taught us. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of God. When you teach like a prophet, Keith. The Lord did. He opened his mouth like a prophet would, from authority. Now, when you read that, Matthew 5:1 and 2, you're reading about sitting right at the feet of God. So let's just sit at the feet of God for a moment. Here we are. What's the most important thing he wants us to know? What's the very first thing he said? Now, let me tell you about heaven. No, he didn't mention that. Well, let me tell you about life. No, that wasn't important to him either. Makarios, not happy, blessed. Happy's an emotion. In fact, the first three letters of happy are HAP, which are the first three letters of happenstance. If you want to be happy, you're taking a chance. But if you want to be blessed, here's the way. Because I can be blessed, that doesn't require emotion. I can be joyful when I'm hurting, in the sense that Jesus mentions it here. I can be makarios. I can be full of the joy of God when I become a servant. But the first step, he said, was, Keith, empty yourself. I've already mentioned that. Because I need to be understanding I don't belong to me anymore. I don't belong to me anymore. Look at Matthew 20:28, if you would. Can you picture in your mind a short, dark-skinned Jew, hair kind of long, but he's not Caucasian. He doesn't have real long hair like these pictures you see of supposedly of Jesus. This is a short, dark-skinned fellow who lived 2,000 years ago in a human body. We walk up to him and we say, Jesus, why did you come here? What's your purpose? I came to serve, not to be served. You did what? I came to serve. Whom? Everybody. What a great thought that is. Let's put Philippians 2 with it. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. What did you come to do, Jesus? Aren't you the second person of the Godhead in a human body? Aren't you the Word made flesh? And you came to serve? If you had been the Son of God, if you had been the Word of God in eternity who became the Son of God, wouldn't you have come here in a flaming chariot, letting everybody know you're a king? Letting everybody know you're the one that's the boss, I'm in charge, look to me. Tell me again why you came. Where were you when you were first born? Where'd they put you? Oh, that was in a feed box. The second person of the Godhead was laid in a feed box? Yeah. Animals around, there's some. And you came to serve. You lowered yourself that much. Yeah, he was in the form of God, verse 6. But didn't think it was something to be held on to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, took upon him the form of a servant, was found in the fashion of man. Why? So he could serve. As long as I'm in this human body, my prayer is that God gives me opportunities to serve. That's my purpose. That's why I'm here. I'm following his example, even when it comes to my enemies. Let me comment on this phrase that Jesus gave us, love your enemies. We use the word love in English to mean so many things that sometimes we don't get the sense of that command. But he told us to love our enemies, did he not? But he used the word agape here. Matthew says the Greek meaning of the word Jesus used is agape. He didn't use phileo, and I'm so grateful he did not. If a person's my enemy, I'll know that. Right? You're not my enemy, are you? But he said, love him. But he's my enemy. Oh, I don't have to be emotionally involved. Phileo, no. Oh, I'm not involved romantically. Eros, no. He's not in my family, storgano. You just, whenever he needs help, help him. He may still be your enemy, but you serve him. Oh, no like about it at all. No, I don't even like the fellow. I don't like what he does, but I can agape him. That's what Jesus came to do, and he did it for us. Think about it. While we were yet sinners, what did he do? When I was ungodly, what did he do? Did you realize that the Lord loved us before we ever became Christians as much as the Lord's ever going to love us? And so to be a servant just follows his example. This is part of the church's mission to do this. God put us in a big group. Why? Let's examine that for a second or two. Why did God put us in such a big group? I read about a girl who was getting into her late 20s, no husband. She became desperate, frustrated. Where is my knight in shining armor? And every day she'd be on her knees. Father, please give me a knight in shining armor. Please send that one to me, the one who can be my life mate. And then she finally thought she met him. And it was an exciting courtship. He brought her flowers and candy, all that stuff we do. Somebody said, well, Eve was in the deception. I said, that's a good thing. If women weren't easily deceived, none of us would be married. You can laugh at that when you go home. Just waking you up there for a minute. Here she is, and she thinks this is the one. And one day he says, honey, would you marry me? Oh, yeah, she's so excited. I'll tell you what, here it is, boy, wedding day. 2 weeks after that, they are still excited until one day she noticed that every time he ate, he'd make funny noises. Kind of irritated her. She got annoyed at it. Every time he eats, those funny noises come out of his mouth. And worse than that, at night when he slept, dirty clothes on the floor. Whew. And he left stuff in the sink after he brushed his teeth. Ate and left his dishes on the table so she could clean them. So she got back down on her knees and she said, Father, you must have given me the wrong one. If God had spoken to her directly, he would have told her something that she needed to learn. I asked the question, why did God put us in a church? So we could learn what that young lady has to learn now. She has to learn how to love the unlovable. That's why we're in a church. To learn to love the unlovable. It's amazing to watch when the students come to school from all over the place, in fact, from all over the world sometimes, and watch them struggle to become a unit. You remember, Jonathan? How long did it take you to get to be 1, 2 years? The whole time you were there. It's different, isn't it? What is happening is, this person has a different culture. This person has a different attitude. This person has, and in that service, when I start learning how to love that person, then I start becoming like the Lord, and then I realize he put me here to help me learn that. And so I'm in the church to learn the greatest lesson of all, that I'm a servant. I'm in something big so I can learn to love the unlovable. She came in my office one day. She said, I don't love him anymore. I said, you're going to have to learn how then. She said, you can't learn to love. I said, yes, you can. We'll just study 1 Corinthians 13, learn how to do it. Well, we did. She did. She's still with him. What happened? She began to serve him. She came to the understanding that I'm in this to learn the greatest lesson of all, that it's my task to love the unlovable. I don't believe they'll let me to preach anymore. Some of you hadn't learned that lesson. I'm not the most lovable person in the world. Ask my wife. But people have learned how to love the unlovable. And besides all of that, look at Luke 17:10. I don't believe there's any greater mission I can't think of one, than serving. Jesus came to seek. To what? Seek. And to save the lost. Seek. One of the qualifications of an elder is that he be given to hospitality. That's also the qualification of a Christian. Given, listen to that word, to what? Hospitality. It becomes inherent in us to serve. That's what that means. Given to it. We would put a man in the eldership who, before he ever became an elder, was out in the community looking for people who needed help. He's given to it. He's learned how to be a Christian servant. He understands his position in the world. It becomes part of him. If I'm given to woodworking, it becomes part of my life. Well, if I'm given to hospitality, if I'm given to service, it becomes part of my life. That was Jesus' mission, to seek. If he had not come here, we would not have been found, would we? And to save the lost. I heard somebody say, those people in the church ought to. Who are those people in the church? Who are the they who keep expecting others to do it? I think there's another reason here, and that is that when we become a servant, our vision for the Lord's work becomes clear. In the movie that Mel Gibson made that was called Braveheart, we need some Bravehearts in the church right now. We have people right now quitting because of the virus, using it as an excuse maybe to quit. I don't know. But I do know that what that fellow said in the movie, he said, they may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom. We may die serving the world right now, but they will never take our freedom in Christ. They can't. There are congregations begging for volunteers. Why? Were they not looking at the things which they could not see? 2 Corinthians 4, 16 and 17. I was privileged to study under a man named James Fowler down at Emory University. And he has a theory about groups and how they grow and so on spiritually. But all of us know that people want to belong. They want to be part of something. They usually want genuine relationships, usually. And that dream is behind what I'm saying here. It makes the team. The idea of belonging to something that's greater than I am and being part of it. Well, Brother Mosher, I give and other people do the work. That's only half the task, folks. Everybody gives. We all have to go to work. That's the point. Look at that first line there. One of the reasons to serve is it brings the joy of giving back. In London, England, back in the 1800s, the account is that a slave was being purchased on the block in London. When the fellow purchased the slave, he told him, I purchased you to set you free. The slave, former slave, said to him, in that case, I will serve you willingly the rest of my life. I hope that's our attitude toward the Lord. That when we become a servant, we become love. That's what we're being. That's what we are. When we're always expecting others to serve us, we're not practicing the love that God wants us to practice. We're not being it. Because great joy comes from giving and nobody knows you're giving. Great joy comes from serving and no one knows you're serving. You first give of yourself, 2 Corinthians 8, and then something happens. Look at Luke 6:38. This is a promise from the Master. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together and flowing over, will men give into your bosom. What's the forerunner to that promise? Give, and it shall be given you. When I become a servant, I become love. This is fun, serving. Isn't it fun, Glenn? You get great joy out of this, don't you? Yeah. When are you going to start? Choose the fun one. Lots of ways to serve in the Lord's church. Choose the one that gives you the greatest joy. I love to visit widows and older folks and listen to their accounts of all of their lives serving the Lord. I was in Sister Womack's kitchen one day, very poor financially, but very rich spiritually. In her kitchen, there was a light bulb hanging from a cord. On the sink was the pump. No faucet. 2 chairs, one of which did not have a back. She gave me the one with the back. That's Sister Womack. The linoleum on the floor was really worn. And I was a young preacher then, didn't know any better and still don't, but I didn't know a whole lot then. And I said to her, Sister Womack, how do you stand being alone? She looked at me and preached me a sermon. She said, young man, I'm not alone. It didn't matter about the light bulb and the linoleum and the water pump. It mattered about her relationship, the great joy she got from being a Christian. I have to admit to you, there is stress in serving. Sometimes we get frustrated and so on. Brother Cates used to tell about the fellow who called the church and said, I need help financially. We don't have any food. I'm out of work. I don't have any money to pay my bills. So they got together some food. They got together some money, and they went to his house, and he was lying on the couch on the porch with his face toward the back of the couch. They walked up on the porch, and they said, we brought the food. He said, put it on the table. Then when they said, well, we've got some money for you too, he said, roll me over and put it in my back pocket. You want to serve that fellow? I don't know. But that's a strange story. But sometimes there's a lot of stress in service. Sometimes there's a lot of frustration in service. But that's not why I do it, to get their commendation. I get it to understand the joy I get when I'm being like my master. 10 reasons to serve. Let's go back to John 14:15. If you love me. I hope that's the reason you obeyed the gospel initially. If you love me. When he said that to his chosen few, I've often wondered what they thought. He just told them he was just about to die. They're in the upper room. Wonder what they thought. I know what Peter said. Lord, I'll die with you. Peter, you'll deny me 3 times before morning. I wonder what Peter felt when he heard that. If you love me, you will be a servant. When I was a little boy, my younger sister used to irritate me no end. She was absolutely horrible to me. I grew up thinking all girls were mean. Well, they aren't, but I thought it at the time. She made me so angry one day, I picked up a rock and I threw it at her. It missed her and went through the kitchen window. My mother came out on the porch and said, go get the razor strop. I knew what that meant. My dad used a straight razor. You remember those things? That thing had 2 pieces of leather, and he would sharpen that razor on it. It's a strop, not a strap. It is a strop. Am I through? Oh, I'm not through because I got to finish the story. She applied that belt to the seat of my instruction. But my mother was one of those, Caleb, that wouldn't leave well enough alone. I think she must have had some German blood in her. In fact, I know she did. Because after she got through whipping me, she said, wait until, what's the rest of that? What's the rest of that? Until your father gets home. That's the one. So I thought, I'm going to get some towels and put them back there. It was already hurt, right? He didn't whip me. If you love me, he looked down at me and he said, son, you disappointed me today. My Father in heaven asked me to grow, serve, love. Why? It's part of his plan. And if I don't live up to it, I may hear that from him, and I don't want to hear it. Depart from me would be bad enough, but if my Father looked down at me that day and said, Keith, you disappointed me today. I had all these plans for you. Had you become a New Testament Christian? Had you become my servant? Had you become love? As we therefore have opportunity, let us do good to all men, even the household of faith.